What is up? Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys Cave. You entered a cave, but we look a little different tonight, don't we? That's because we're bringing the U into the cave. So I got to bring in some of my U memorabilia, get that going because I've got a very, very special guest, and we're talking about two-time national champion coach Dennis Erickson is coming in. He's entering the cave, and let's just bring him in now. We don't want to waste any more time. Coach Erickson, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good, good. I appreciate you coming in. Like I tell the audience, I've got the Cowboys cave, but I'm a hurricane in my heart. I grew up in South Florida, and those days with the hurricanes in the late '80s into the '90s was a special time for me. My dad was a season ticket holder. We still have season tickets to this day, and hopefully we get back to those days that you guys had. But just wanted to talk a little bit about your career with Miami, obviously replacing Jimmy Johnson. What was your thoughts going into Miami and taking on that program that had that success? Was there pressure or just keeping that train rolling?
Really, in all the coaching jobs I've had, that was the most difficult one to deal with because they were successful, obviously, and to hold that success is difficult. I mean, you can go into a program that hasn't won and that the expectations aren't as high, and you can take your time in trying to build it up, which is what I was able to do a couple times, but. The hardest one was going into Miami, following Jimmy, all the success and things that he had. But myself, I wanted to win a national championship. That's just how I was. And Sam Jankovic was the athletic director, and I trusted him. And I took the job. When that happened, I didn't even think about. I knew Jimmy's success, but I had no problem following him. And we ended up winning a couple national championships, and obviously he was involved in some of that recruiting wise. But it was about the players and the culture at the University of Miami is what I picked up on, and I learned a lot, even other places I coached. But being around those players, it was more about the players than any single coach.
Yeah.
They just had an attitude.
And it was that hurricane swag they talk about, and you really didn't waste any time, getting a national championship. You're talking, 1989. You guys have a phenomenal year. I think you're 11-1. You go in and take care of Alabama to win your first national championship. So you said, you wanted to come to Miami to win one. You didn't waste any time. What was that? What was that feeling like?
Well, winning it was unbelievable. But as we went through the season, we got beat by Florida State that year.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, they were about ready to ship me out of Miami.
Yeah, you can't lose to Florida
And
State.
no, I mean that's just how it was.
Yeah, no.
And it didn't really even phase me. I've never been bothered by challenges, as a coach. And I had a great staff, and the players, the culture was there. I mean, it was developed by Howard to
Hmm.
start out with, probably more than anybody. Jimmy took it from there, and I had the opportunity to be there 6 years. But the first year, you don't really know. I mean, I came from Washington State. That's Pullman, Washington.
Yeah.
A little different than Miami, Florida. But the Orange Bowl was a key, and the players, they were going to win. I didn't have to say anything to them.
Yeah.
And I let them play just like they did before, and they had the swag, which I thought was cool. And I used that as time went on, and people were intimidated to play them, and nobody intimidated them. And we had the Orange Bowl in those days, and when we lost the Orange Bowl, that made it tough.
Didn't it? I mean, that was the mystique, and I just remember going to those games and at the Orange Bowl, and I would just tell people there was just nothing better than a big game in the Orange Bowl, whether it been Florida State, Miami, or Florida, Notre Dame, any of those. any of those teams coming into the Orange Bowl. It rocked. It just shook around, and it was kind of decrepit a little bit, but it just had a mystique, and that's really the best thing I could say about the Orange Bowl. And yeah, I definitely, as a fan, you miss those days at the OB.
Yeah, without a question. And Notre Dame came in there when we won the second national championship, if I'm right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was the Orange Bowl was shoot at 3.5. We played at 7, 3 in the afternoon. It was full.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
mean,
hot.
yeah, and hot. And I walked out there, and it was they were pounding their feet when we came out there to warm up. And I knew then, good luck. Whoever plays us in that atmosphere doesn't have much of a chance, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one interesting season was 1990. You guys, you that was in between one of the national championships. You guys end up going to the Cotton Bowl. And I just got to say this because my dad would kill me if I didn't say it, because he'd tell you it's his favorite game. It's his most memorable game with the Canes. It was, and I don't know how you felt about it as a coach. It's still to this day the largest margin of victory in a Cotton Bowl, but it was also 15 penalties, 200 yards, and Randall Hill going in the tunnel, and all of that, intimidation. What was your thoughts on that game? Is that a game you look at and you're proud, or you kind of like, man?
No, I'm proud, man.
Yeah,
You know, if you were there during the week, uh, Texas, I think, was ranked number one. We lost to BYU and Florida State, I think. I can't remember who the second game was. And, we were put back and playing in the Sugar Bowl, which we thought was a pretty good deal. And then we were able to play Alabama. And, it was a big time for us. And winning that game was really a key. But when Notre Dame came in there, to make a long story short, that was the biggest win I'd ever been around. But talking about the losses, I think I'm talking about the right times. But when they came in that second year, and we beat them, to get that opportunity, then we beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Wow, that's not real good for people in Texas.
It's still, I don't know. I just the visions of Randall Hill. I still see it, and he still talks about it, and just those players. They wanted to send a message. And I think that was a game. If my memory's right, there was an offensive lineman that made some comments about Russell
Oh yeah,
Maryland, and Russell
oh yeah.
Maryland just tore him up.
And then they made some comments about the whole team, and we weren't as good, and they were ranked number one. And
Yeah,
the whole week in Dallas was set up perfectly for us because they didn't know our kids,
yeah,
and you don't deal with our particular program by doing that. It never happens at Miami. It's usually the other way around.
yeah.
And when they started talking, I said, "Wow." Then when we went out and warmed up, I'll never forget it. They tried to run through our stretching line. I don't know if you remember that or
Yeah.
not, but and I'll tell you what, we came in before the game, and I said, "Watch out." And as soon as the game started, it was over and done with. Actually, I felt sorry for Texas. Not really, but you know, but it was a great win, and yeah, there were a lot of penalties, and all I can tell you about the penalties, we play hard. I mean, that's just how we play. I
Yeah.
mean, that wasn't anything different than before, but it was more on a national stage. But it just kind of told everybody that you can't talk like Miami
No.
and win.
And
So
I,
that's
and,
kind of how it was.
and to have 200 penalties and still only give up 3 points, 200 penalty yards, that just shows you how dominating, that defense and that team was. And, you look at it, easily, arguably, you're going to, those years, you probably could have 3 national champions, but we go to 92, and it's funny. I had George Teague on, And that was another game. But that we talk about in the family, and Miami, you
Oh
guys
yeah.
are big
Oh yeah.
favorites. And do you think there was maybe a little bit of overconfidence going into that game, or you won
No, I don't.
29 straight wins? I mean, no, you guys are dominating in that 3-year period.
Well, I don't think so because I'll tell you what, Alabama was good.
Yeah,
They had defensive linemen that played for years in the NFL, and I mean that was a good football team. And I don't know that we were overconfident at all. We just got beat. We didn't make a lot of plays when we needed to. Tig stole the ball from Lamar's grasp when he was going in for the end zone, and I remind him about that every time I see him.
yeah,
And Lamar. I
yeah.
mean, he still talks, but but yeah, that was a game changer. But I think maybe we were a little overconfident, but you got to give that Alabama credit for that.
Yeah. No, it was just one of them games. So, yeah, the great seasons you had with Miami, you get an opportunity to go to the NFL, and I always wonder this because you saw Jimmy Johnson make the move. You've made that move. Butch Davis, who ended up replacing you when he got Miami going, he made that move. Do you ever have a look back and say, man, if I just would have stayed, how many more national championships could I have won, or this or that, or you can't look back, you can only look forward.
Well, I look back. I look in the mirror every day and say, "How stupid are you, Dennis, for leaving Miami?" I mean, what a dumb move. I mean, it was. The biggest reason I went, I was from Seattle.
Yeah.
Born and raised, and it was around the Seahawks when it first started, and there's a lot of ownership problems there, and actually when I was there, we did pretty dang good, and then they made an ownership change, and the rest is history. But that one doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would I or should I? I would never do it again, but you can't do that. I mean, you don't have a chance to second guess yourself. Although there are a lot of people that second guess you, but that is one I second guess myself in my career. But that's life. I had so much fun at Miami and so many friends, and I learned so much about coaching football by being around the players we had
Yeah.
there. I mean, they taught me a lot. So it was. I think about it every day. My favorite place I've ever coached, and I just hope that we can continue to get better.
Well, and I'd say the one thing that you've kind of, a lot of people with Miami, we talk about Penn State and linebacker you had a little bit of a linebacker you as well, and I like Miami's, and you had the Bermuda Triangle and that national championship
Oh,
with Barrow and Darren Smith, who was a Cowboy, and Jesse Armstead, and just, I mean, how do you have three? I mean, these are perennial Pro Bowlers and Super Bowl champions in the NFL, and you had him as your starting linebacker core. That had to make life pretty easy for you.
I'm going to tell you what that group of three, and they were playing in the NFL when I was coaching in the NFL. So actually, I had to play against them, and maybe that's why I didn't last very long. But yeah, that group. I mean, you take Michael and Darren, and it was just an unbelievable group. I mean, Jesse was special, and I mean, we were fortunate to have those guys, and it was really that was my first recruiting class because we went and the start of it we went to Texas and Jesse and Michael out of Homestead,
Hmm.
and so I mean it was a group that was pretty darn good up all from pretty much the state.
Yeah. And then to make it even better for you, you're talking about, Ray Lewis. And the story I could give with Ray Lewis is I grew up in South Florida. I wasn't big enough to play football, so I wrestled in high school. And I graduated the same year as Ray Lewis. And he was a state champion wrestler out of Lakeland.
Right,
And I
I
just,
remember.
and my buddy was a 152. And we talk about it to this day. I'm like, do you know that you actually you could have wrestled Ray Lewis in high school, and the look on his face, like, thank God it never happened. I mean, he was an amazing athlete. Obviously, with football and to be a state champion wrestler is no easy task. Let me just tell you. What was that recruiting him? Did you see him for what he became, as probably arguably the greatest linebacker in NFL history?
I don't know that you ever see that, but what I did see, he wasn't really, heavily recruited out of high school. And, but I went and watched him play. And, I, uh, I just saw him and talked to him, and I watched him play. I mean, he had a motor, played hard. He wasn't the biggest linebacker that's ever played by any means. I mean, he was even smaller than most, but he had such a feeling for the game. You didn't have to teach him. He just had he knew what was going on before the ball was snapped, or as it was snapped, and he was so inspirational and such a leader for our team, and what he did after that, obviously, is maybe one of the greatest that's ever played the game, and he was special. I remember we played him when I was at Seattle, and he was playing at Baltimore,
Yeah.
and they obviously won the game, and but he played his rear end off. It was a close football game, if I remember right. But there's nobody special like Ray Lewis, and I know he's had issues in his life. I think a lot of it is overrated, but I mean, he went through everything and, came out on top, and he's a great young man.
Yeah, no, I mean he's a legend in I mean, to be a legend in the NFL, and obviously Miami, he's beloved there. So you know looking at one thing I'd ask you, maybe it's off subject a little bit. Draft is coming, and I see
Right.
so much at the combine. It's what do they run the 40s? What do they do this? And how high do they jump? I mean, as a coach, do you put a lot of stock in that, or you've seen as a coach, I think you see these guys play in college for 3 years. You think you'd have all that information through game film. What would you get out of the combine, or what did you use the combine for? As far
Well,
as
I mean,
drafting.
there's a lot of testing, that goes on. Some of them are important, some aren't,
Mhm.
depending on what the tests are. But I mean, if let's say for example, a wide receiver. I mean, you know, can he catch a ball? But you're testing 40-yard speed, change of direction, things like that for all those players. What they test, is important. I mean, it really is. You got to look and see what they can do, what's their size, how high do they jump. More than anything is what kind of lateral movement does an offensive lineman have, or a
Mhm.
backer, or secondary is how are your feet, change of direction. There's a lot of things that you see.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, when you get done with the combine, what we used to do, you get back from the combine, you've watched the players before, then you watch them again.
Yeah.
Everybody, every position. How does that relate to each other?
Yeah.
The combine and a guy on film, and then you bring them in and do personal workouts with them. You learn about their family. You learn about a lot of things. But when it's all said and done, when you turn the film on, in my day, now it's
Yeah.
whatever kind of video, but now it's, I mean, how do they play?
Yeah.
I mean, how do they play when they're behind? You know, how fast can they get the ball, football, or as a receiver, you make the big catch. All those things are important. So, but part of it's the combo or and that kind of thing. But the other one is just watch them play football. Then you're going to make a decision on, what's going on.
Mm.
Sometimes you get a lot of players that look like Tarzan, play like Jane. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just how it is. And so you got to evaluate that, and that's not easy. You got to really investigate all that stuff. And it's the combine is part of it.
Yeah. And you just don't know how someone will get to that next level, in their lives, or make that transition, because it's like you always say, you have all the greatest high school kids, they're just another guy in college. And then it goes on, in the NFL, all the great college kids are just another guys in the NFL. So it's pretty interesting how it happens. So getting into coaching, I'm a Cowboys fan too. That's where my heart and passion is as well. And I always, when I have guests on, and like I said, I had Craig Morton on last week, and he said hello. He wanted to make sure I told you that
Yeah,
he said hello.
he's one of my favorite guys. Boy, you talk about a tough freaking quarterback
Yeah,
when he
yeah.
played. It wasn't
He,
any tougher than him.
he was just a great guy. We had a lot of fun, and I mean, just his stories, and just his career was amazing. So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way he battled back from that whole Staubach, and switching back and forth.
right.
And I mean, would you ever see yourself just getting maybe changing things up with? Could you see yourself switching quarterbacks every play, or every game? It was just kind of odd. And I mean, Tom Landry is one of the greatest, but that just doesn't seem like, I had Larry Cole on and some old teammates, and they said that just divided the locker room. It just ended up causing more problems. I mean, did you any rhyme or reason why you would do that?
None.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you make change if you're going to make a change, make a change,
Yeah, yeah,
and make the decision preseason, however they make the decision on who's the starter,
yeah,
and you play him until you don't think he can play. Give the other guy a chance, and that's what I would do.
yeah,
But changing quarterbacks, I mean, there are some guys that do that. Sometimes they bring them running in college, particularly.
yeah,
They do that a lot. They bring a guy in that can run, and but in the NFL, I think it's very difficult. But like you said, the mindset of the rest of the players is kind of the key to what's going on, and
yeah,
so that's important too. It's like college football. Like you talk about, the transfer portal. You talk about how much money they had NIL. It creates problems. How would you like to be offensive lineman at whatever school,
hmm
and your quarterback's making $2 million and you're making $10,000? You don't think that divides the freaking locker room a little bit?
yeah. And
It does.
I don't get it. I don't get the NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, you're not into coaching much anymore. But I mean, how would you see that in your day? It almost seems like it's kind of, I don't want to say it's going to destroy college football. I mean, maybe it is, but it's just changed it so much, from what it was.
Oh yeah, but to me it's ridiculous. It's the transfer portal. What are we teaching? I come in as a freshman, I'm the backup and have a great future. And I'm not playing, so I transfer someplace else. I
Yeah.
mean, what are we teaching them? I
No.
mean,
And I look
what
at it
kind of
the
responsibility?
Yeah, and the other way, if you commit to the school, and they keep bringing in, another quarterback because they
Right,
think that one's better,
exactly.
and you've committed. I've got a friend whose son, he went through that. He commit to the school, and they keep bringing in just a rotation of different quarterbacks all over the place. And so what's that do for him, who's committed to the program? And yeah, I
Yes,
hope, I don't know what's going to happen. I guess it's not going to change. I mean, that big money and big business typically rule all. But I wanted to ask you, because I always got to get some Cowboy stuff in. You had Dan Quinn on your staff at San Francisco, and he was a defensive line coach, I believe, back in what, 2003,
right.
2004.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what's your thoughts on Dan Quinn? I mean, we love him in Dallas. He's kind of resurrected our defense, and he's built such a great defense for us, and we're happy. We're happy he's in Dallas. Want him to stay in Dallas because he's a pretty good head coach too. He went to a Super Bowl. But what's your thoughts on Dan Quinn?
Well, the 2 years that I spent with him, he was. Uh, I thought he was an up and coming guy. He was young
Hmm
then, and you know, I hired him as a defensive line coach for the 2 years that I was there. I thought he was special. I really did, and obviously we got let go there, and then he continued on, but he he should be a head coach. I mean, I look at some of the head coaches in the NFL, and I scratch my head sometimes. But here's a guy that's been around, done it, been with the organizations, and I'm surprised that he doesn't have a job. But you know what? He might be really smart and
Yeah.
want to be an assistant coach because being a head coach, it's no big deal in the NFL. I got to be honest. You got owners doing this and doing that. The organizations, depending on how they're structured, or you're
Yeah.
looking over your shoulder every freaking day of the week. So, you know, but
And there's
he's
no
a
time.
great coach.
There's no time anymore. It's like I've seen. I don't know how many coaches are gone after 1 year in the NFL. It
All
makes
the
me
time.
wonder why you were in college. So why would a college coach want to go to the NFL? What would be the driving point? You saw Nick Saban. He made that attempt at it. You saw the coach in Carolina who got let go. I forgot his name, but I mean, what is the driver? Is it just the ultimate prize of the Super Bowl? Is it the money, or is it the prestige? What do you think it is that drives great college coaches? Steve Spurrier took a shot at it to go in the NFL.
Well, I think, I go back to my situation, and like I said, I wasn't very smart.
Yeah.
But the reason that I left, uh, I wanted to go to the NFL just to prove I can do it.
Hmm.
Obviously, that didn't happen, but it that's one of them. And then back in my day, financially was, college football was not paying like it's being paid now.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
paying more money than the NFL. But back in my day when I left from Miami, there was quite a difference financially, and that was part of it. Then now, with what these people are making in college football is a lot of money. So I don't know what uh, what the purpose is. And I look back, when I was coaching at the University of Miami, I think I was making whatever,
Yeah.
six six hundred thousand, 700, whatever it was. Now the head coach there is making 6 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a difference. A couple more zeros on that thing, but or one more.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's so they're getting paid. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised to see any college guy go to the NFL now if they're successful.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of, Miami today, so all your stops, all your successes, all your accomplishments you have, are do you consider yourself, if someone asks you, what are you? I'm a Hurricane. Is that your number one team that you say?
Well, of course. I mean, that's actually the number one team is Montana State University, where I went to school and was an outstanding quarterback at 5'9", 170 pounds, who couldn't throw it 25 yards. But that's what I'm proud
Yeah.
of. Yeah, it's yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, we won 2 national championships, played for 2 other ones. I was proud of that. So I pay a lot of attention to what's happening at Miami all the time, and
Yeah, and thoughts on
you know, I
on them now, with Mario Cristobal trying to rebuild a program. It's been a long time for Miami. Not as long as my Cowboys, but it's been a long time. And with the opportunity of recruiting, obviously in Florida and the hotbed, do you think Miami got the right guy, and we're gonna, they're gonna get this thing turned around and hopefully hoist up one of those championship trophies like you did a few times?
yeah, I think so. I mean, Mario's a great recruiter. He's from South Florida, obviously, and Cuban descent, and I mean, it's great for South Florida. He did a great job at Oregon recruiting, and you know when he when he gets everything straight at Miami as far as the everything that's happening in college football, I guess is the
Yeah.
easiest way to say. I think he'll get it done because he's home, and I think he'll really do a good job of keeping the kids in Florida, and particularly in South Florida, at the University of Miami. Because to me, that's the key. If
Hmm.
you can keep the players in South Florida and then go wherever, I think the rest. But if you can win that battle like we did, and keep those guys there, you're going to lose a couple, but you can't lose as many as we've lost previously. Yeah, then you got a chance, but it's not as easy as it was. I mean, it's there's a lot of good football teams around, and there's a lot of good teams that come into South Florida that have turn the control from Miami to whatever school. Alabama comes in and gets some great ones. I mean, there's probably a lot of them, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's not going to be as easy as people think. But I love his stability. He's going to be patient. They're doing things I think in the transfer portal, which, like I said, I'm not in favor of. And I don't know what they're doing with the IEL. I don't know who their guys are, but that's also key to getting players there. So it's a whole different world
Yeah.
as far as building a program. So we'll see. He's got a good staff, and he's made some changes, but Mario's been a great guy. He was a great Hurricane, played great for me. So I'm rooting for him all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one thing that comes up with Miami, they talk about facility, and I get in this argument with all my Florida and Florida State friends who are fans of those schools, and I always got to explain to them, Miami's a private school. We don't have 60,000 students there, and one of the things that always comes up is obviously the stadium. You lose the Orange Bowl, you go to the Hard Rock, you definitely don't have that feel. I'm a season ticket holder, went to most all the games last season, and it's definitely not the same. Do you think it could change with building a stadium on campus? Is
Yeah.
that something that would help, or no?
Yes, I think it would help big time. It's the University of Miami Stadium, and like the Orange Bowl. The Orange Bowl was the Orange Bowl. Of course, the Dolphins played there, but it was different in those days.
Yeah.
And they've I was there a couple of years ago. They've improved the facilities, but they still got to keep going on the facilities because that's what kids and parents look at. Plus, how much money am I going to get in the IAL? All that stuff. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, it's like pro football now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just how it is. But if you bring the homie back, which I don't know if they're even looking at that, where that's their stadium, whatever it may be, maybe a 40,000 seat stadium. I don't know the answer, but I know one thing: if it's theirs, it makes a difference to the players. The people in South Florida, they don't have to drive up to Fort Lauderdale to watch a game. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they should have that, and they got to keep the facilities continue to get better, for the program.
Yeah,
So,
and it's because again, I go to the stadium, and it's a 70,000 seat stadium, and there's probably 40,000 fans there, but it looks
right,
half empty because it's so big. And I always say, man, if you put
right,
a build a smaller stadium on campus, and if you have the Florida game or Florida State or Notre Dame, and you want to move that to the Hard Rock to get more fans there, then have at it. But I just think it would definitely improve, and I know they've talked about it, but I think they've been talking about it since you were a coach. So I don't know.
yeah, they were. Well,
It's gonna
if
happen.
they build a 50,000 seat stadium down by the school or on campus or close to campus, it'll change everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because that's what the people see. The players. Yeah, you like facilities. I mean, what can you do with facilities? I mean, everybody's got everything,
Yep.
but it's really where you want to go and where you want to play, and
No.
make a tradition of that thing. And that's what's got to happen to get Miami back to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I sure hope it happens soon. And so, Coach, what's Coach Erickson up to these days? How you enjoying life?
Well, I'm a little bored. You know, when you coach for whatever 60 years or
Yeah.
whatever the hell I coach, 50, but you miss that time. It's been a couple of years. I coached in that AAF league,
Hmm.
out of Salt Lake City, and that lasted 7 games, and then they ran out of money and quit paying everybody, and didn't have any plane tickets to go home. So,
Jeez.
so that was a lot. That was kind of a bitter deal, and I love coaching. I've gone to some schools and have done a little consulting, not very much, but I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, on the lake, and right now it's snowing, but in a month I'll be able to hit that driver about 160 down the middle. So, that's about it. But I'm involved. My son coaches at the University of Montana, and the University of Idaho is coached or is close where I coached, and Montana State where I graduated from, and Washington State. So everything's kind of close. So
Yeah.
I get a chance to spend a little time doing that, and I try to get to Miami at least once a year, and I'm going to get there this year. I went to a couple games a year ago, or one game 2 years ago, I should say, and I want to go when we had the reunion of the teams that we coached. So,
Yeah.
but I got to get down there this fall, and I love going down there. I love the people, but I got to get down there. The airplanes have not been very much fun right now.
No,
So
I,
you got to check what's going
yeah,
on.
I was gonna say I do a lot of traveling, and it's not what definitely not what it was. And they had the anniversary for the '87 national champ, 35 years. I can't believe it. That means the '89 one is 35 years coming up soon. So I know
Yeah,
they'll get everyone together for that. But I mean, that's always great times and memories, and and you giving back. That's one of the beauties is you can go there and consult. You can tell them all, all your experience and knowledge, and you get to go home. That's probably the beauty of helping out these coaches and universities now.
yeah, it really is. And I went to just a state of Idaho high school clinic the other day, and I just went to the social. I'm really good at that, by the way. And but those high school coaches came in for the social, and I got a chance to spend a lot of time talking to some of those small high schools and their coaches, and it was really fun for me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to take all your time. It's snowing. I'm in Florida, so I can tell you I was on the Wave Runners this weekend. So that it's the
But,
beauty of being in Florida if you miss it at all. But
well, I miss it, so shut up.
so, but no, I appreciate you coming on, and it's been an honor. Like I said, that you were the coach when I was in high school, so I don't want to age you, but it just great times in Miami. It was just such a it's always it's great to be a Miami Hurricane, as they say all the time, and you made it special. Teams were special, and you were a great coach, and I can't thank you. Your resume is a mile long of all your successes, but just very special in Miami. And I just want to thank and appreciate you coming into the cave and sharing some great stories about some of the times in Miami.
You bet.
Yep.
You're only 42, right?
I'll be
Oh,
40. I'm 40. I
I
won't
guess
tell
I'm a
you.
little
I
older.
won't
I
tell
guess
you.
that's a little. Please don't. I
I
don't want. I have
won't.
enough trouble with mine. All
No,
right.
no, I appreciate it. And just hang on one second, coach. I'm just going to do an outro. And then I just want to say thank you again. But
Okay.
everyone in the cave, Coach Erickson, two-time national champion. We converted this cave, and now it's the Canes cave. So we appreciate it. Make sure you guys tune in, like, subscribe. We've got so many more guests coming up. Like I said, Coach Barry Switzer is going to be coming into the cave soon. We'll be talking a little back to a little Cowboys, but I got some more Canes up my sleeve, so we'll be talking about it. I appreciate it. You guys take care. Talk to you soon.